All right, our next topic is an overview of West Nile virus in the Big Horn Basin. Jordan first.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know. Thanks for everything. So it's good to see everybody. My name is Jordan Gerlach. I'm from Northwest College in Powell, Wyoming. I'm going to be talking about West Nile virus in the birds of the Big Horn Basin. So a quick overview of West Nile virus. It was first introduced to the United States actually at the Bronx Zoo in 1999. And that very first year, there were 1,300 infected bird carcasses found. And there were 62 human infections. And in just 7 years, it spread all the way down to the tip of Argentina. And as of 2011, there's been 1,200 human deaths. 80% of the people who get West Nile virus don't even necessarily know they have it. 20% people kind of get like a flu-like symptom, and it's less than 1% to have some really serious complications. And if you're over 50 and have a weak immune system, or you just got an organ transplant, you're at the highest risk. So why study birds? Everybody knows it's the mosquitoes that are giving us the West Nile virus. Something really bizarre would have to happen to get West Nile from a bird. I'm sure it's happened, but it's not common. The birds are the reservoir host. They aren't necessarily the ones infecting us, but they're where the mosquitoes are getting it from. And they're the ones that are making it spread so fast, because the mosquito isn't going to go very far. Birds migrate. They're going to carry this disease with them. And I've also found that there's a direct correlation between how many bird infections there are and human infections. You can see right here, the bird infections peaked, and then right after, the human infections peaked. So if you keep an eye on the numbers of bird infections, you can predict when there's going to be a human outbreak. And my original purpose for this study was to find out how many birds in our area had West Nile virus, so we can see, is there going to be a human outbreak? Didn't necessarily end up there, but that's what I wanted to do. So we started with some pre-baiting, get the birds used to coming around campus, put up some funnel traps. Turned out to be that the birds were trap shy. They wouldn't go in. So we had to put up a 12-meter mist net. We caught 11 birds in about 10 minutes. They were just dive bombing from every direction. We were going to get 10 more, but that was when the temperature dropped down to about -20, and we didn't want to kill any birds, so we decided to just use the 11 that we had. And then we froze the samples. We got 11 fecal samples. We froze them at 80 degrees Celsius below zero. Took them down to Central Wyoming College because they have the ramp reader that we needed to use. And this is their lab here. First thing we needed to do was to mix the sample in with some buffer, with a 1 milliliter buffer. Then we put a BB in with the vial and put it on the vortex for a minute. The BB helped to break up the fecal sample. Then we put it on the microcentrifuge right here, and that helped the floating particles to settle down onto the bottom. This is very important because this step here shows, when you remove the sample, you have to be very careful not to get the particles, because that will clog up the capillaries in the machine and you're going to get an error. If the machine says 30 or below 30, you have a negative. If it tests 30 or above, you're West Nile virus positive. And if something goes wrong, it says low signal. I don't know if you can see that there. One by one, every one that came out, low signal, low signal, low signal. I was getting very frustrated by this because I wanted to see my results. But every one that was coming out was low signal. Here's my results. You can see all of these are low signal. There's one that worked here, a couple of them here. Those were my professor's samples. Those ones were working. Mine were not working. So I was really frustrated by this and trying to figure out why did this all fail. And the first thought was it must have been the particles were clogging up the capillaries, so we decided on making some dilution ratios. Try to, here's one of my samples. You can see how thick that is. Try getting some of that out without any particles. So what I did was I put it in the spectrophotometer, and it measures how much light comes through. This one was 0%. No light was getting through this thing. I made some dilution ratios. You can see some of them here. I found that if I got them up to 70 or 80%, they would work better. I tested all the ones that we had done down at CWC, and it seemed like the ones 70, 80, 90%, those ones had a better chance of working. So you can see the regular numbers, like 1, that's the original sample that didn't work. 1.1 is the dilution I made. It was a 200-to-1 ratio, and it got up to 95.3. So I did that with all these different ones, and you can see all my data here. And testing them again, every single one of them worked. And I was really happy about that. I did, however, get one really strange result here. Sample 8, originally tested at 38.8% of the light was getting through it. I made 2 different dilution ratios. One tested negative for West Nile. One tested very strongly positive for West Nile. This came from the exact same sample. So this was really strange. So ran it again, got the same result. I honestly have no idea why this is happening. We're wanting to run this to a different type of test. We haven't been able to do it yet to see if we get the same result and why it would be testing positive and negative from the same bird. Also have this chart here. You can see the positives way up here. When I saw this, when I actually compiled all the data together, I kind of saw that there might be another reason that those first ones weren't working properly, because these rectangle ones here are the ones that didn't work. And you can see they're pretty spread out all the way across. Up here in the 80s and 90%, so there's still some that didn't work the first time. So there might be another variable that we didn't necessarily take a look at yet. So I'm really wanting to figure this out. I really wanted to have some black and white conclusive conclusions for you guys today, but as it turns out, I'm still trying to figure all this out. And I mean, in conclusion, I'm still working on this. I'm going to be transferring away, so hopefully there's somebody in the group that'll be able to pick up on this and maybe let me know what's going on, hopefully. And I would like to thank the IMRI, obviously, not only from my school, but from CWC also for letting me use their facilities. Very, very helpful. And yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So I saw on your list of species there, it said northern saw-whet owl. You
Yeah, we had
caught a northern saw-whet owl on campus.
No, that was actually caught up by Eric Atkinson's house in Montana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were a couple of, all of mine were house sparrows. There were a couple of these other ones that he caught near his house.
Cool.
Were these all fecal samples?
Yes.
that you were looking at?
Actually, a couple of these, I think the owl and some of these other ones that Eric got were oral swabs. Yes.
So has there been positive West Nile and house sparrows and American golden finch before? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're definite carriers. Yes.
Have you thought about taking blood samples from these birds?
We talked about it, but we didn't want to be that invasive. We wanted to keep it simpler with not bothering the birds as much as possible. It might give us more conclusive evidence, though. Yes?
You told us where they originated in the U.S. Where did the West Nile virus originate in the world, or when? Like, how long
Yeah.
has it been around?
Actually, the first case was found in a woman in Uganda in 1937, and it just kind of spread from there.
Has it been any positive humans in the Bighorn Basin?
Yes, actually, when I was telling somebody I know about the study I was doing, he said that he knows a guy from Powell, where I live, that actually died from West Nile virus a few years back. He had just had a kidney transplant, and that's one of the major problems there with West Nile. Any other questions?
I might want to mention, Jordan, you might want to mention too that a couple of your positive samples were I'll mention it, in September, in November, and in February, which
So
is
they were throughout the winter.
interesting.